Welcome back to Fall Festival, and today I'm so excited to show you, if you are a new quilter, some new ways to free motion quilt. Let's start with the basics. And today I'm going to be using the Evolution Hoop Frame and the 21X Elite. If you do not have a whole lot of space at home, then this frame is perfect for you. What's really nice about the hoop frame, especially the Evolution Elite hoop frame, is let's say in the future you're ready to upgrade to an 8-foot, 10-foot, maybe even 12-foot rolling frame. All we have to do is send you the parts, and then you just take apart this guy, add some stuff to it, and you got a brand new frame. But if you only have 5 feet of space in your house, this guy is perfect, and you can quilt any size quilt on it. And today I'm going to show you an easy throw quilt. One of my favorite ways to practice free motion quilting is to make one of the easiest quilts ever, and that is buying a layer cake. Well, maybe not ever, but it's pretty easy. You buy a layer cake, you throw it together, all of the fabrics already work together, and on every single block you can do something different. Today I've made a Halloween layer cake, and let me show you how you're going to want to baste it, especially when you use minky on the back. We need to baste it. So let me show you how to baste it really quick. What I've done is I laid my minky out and then I wipe it down to get all the wrinkles out. You want your backing and your batting to be around 4 inches larger than your quilt's top. For a hoop frame, I like to make it 5 inches because it's easier to put it on the quilt without a leader. Once your backing and batting are all smooth, we're gonna add our quilt top. Now we're gonna pin baste it. We're gonna start in the middle. For those of you at home, what methods do you baste? I have pinned all of the points, and in a perfect world, I would go back and pin the centers of all of these. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna lay my quilt on top of my machine, or my frame technically, and I am just wanting to get it all lined up. And one thing, I'm not going to clip it all the way on yet. I'm not going to clip it all the way on yet because what I want to do is, one thing that is really hard when you're using a hoop frame is to see your quilting edge. Like you can see, I'm moving this all the way over and I move it up and it kind of hits a little bit. I'm going to use the edge warning in our toolbox, and I am going to set it to 1 inch. I'm going to go to the top left, and I want to make sure to move my machine all the way to the back, just right, so you can see it's up and down. I'm moving it back and forth. I'm going all the way to the back. Right here, I'm going to move a little bit forward, press set. And then I'm going to go all the way to the bottom right. I'm going to do that same thing where I'm going to pull my machine forward, see where I can go. I can go right here. It's going back and forth. Perfect. I'm going to pull it forward, set it. And now when I get within 1 inch of the edge of my quilting space, it will go ahead and beep at me and turn red. Let's load the quilt. I want to make sure I don't load the quilt past this space right here. So I'm not going to move it anymore this way because this is the edge of my quilting space. I'm going to use these large clippies to snap on my quilt. And these ones, I'm going to be honest, they're a little bit tricky to use just because they are so powerful and they hold down your quilt. Like your quilt's not coming up. They're made so if you squeeze the top of them, they come off so easily. You want to make sure that the open space is in the back so that when you have extra quilt, you can roll it up into that space. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and baste the top. Now we're ready to free motion quilt, and I'm going to show you my favorite 3 beginner ways to just get started. We call them meandering, ribbons, and loops. Those are the 3 basic organic shapes that you want to learn to get started free motioning. And once you learn those 3, you can switch them up to do so many different things. So let's start with Let's just start with basic meandering. Meandering, I'm gonna take my finger and I'm gonna kind of trace along. All meandering is a squiggle. Just like when you doodle and you squiggle, you want no lines to overlap and you just want even spaces. I'm just making sure that everything is spaced out kind of equally and that no lines are touching each other. And I'm just going around in really no random rhyme or fashion. And I want to keep this meander in just this box. Fun fact, I used to decorate cakes for a living, and this design is called Corneli lace in cakes. Next, we're gonna move on to ribbons. Some people call them candy ribbons, but you're just looping back and forth and you're kind of pretending you are going around a penny. If you have like a zigzag of pennies, you're going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And what I like to do is sometimes I like to draw a line and then it will look, then everything will be spaced out evenly. But in this case, I'm looking at this row of white stars and that's just gonna be kind of where I'm gonna stop. So I'm gonna go around just like this. You want your loops to be look super round and spaced out evenly. Go down. We're gonna come back here. We're gonna do the same thing, and I'm just gonna do 3 rows of ribbon. If you focus on where you're going rather than where your needle is hitting, then your loops are gonna be more even and round. When I get to the edge like this, I'll just go the next side. And here we've got our basic ribbons. Ribbons are really good if you have sashing. They look amazing in sashing. We're gonna do something a little fun with them later where you can do different sizes, and that's really fun, especially if you're doing it in like a diamond shape or something. Love that. But now we're gonna move on to the third one, loops. And with loops, there are so many different ways you can do them. But we're gonna start with the basic loop, and I'm gonna go up and back and up and back. So it's back and forth. And we're gonna start by just going left to right and back, kind of like a snake on our fabric. If you wanted, you can do them kind of like a meander where you go in random ways, but the goal is to get my loops even sizes and spaced out consistently. My loops should be spaced out pretty consistently. And now before moving on to my next one, I'm gonna go ahead and rezone my quilt. And when doing a quilt on a hoop frame like this, you want to start at the top and move up, down, left to right. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna switch it up. So we've done the first row of our meandering ribbons and our loops, and now we're gonna switch it up to do something fun with it. And I'm gonna start with my loops. I'm gonna do the basic loop design that I just did, but I am going to, instead of doing one loop, I'm gonna switch it up by doing double loops. So I'm gonna go around and around and back, around and around and back. And still the goal is to get consistent sized loops and to have them the same distance apart. Okay, now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna move on on and I'm gonna do some meandering, except I'm just gonna switch it up a little bit. And I'm gonna do something that looks kind of like ribbons. So I'm gonna do a larger meandering all the way around. And I'm just gonna bring it back to my original point. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go back over it again, except I am going to just kind of do a little bit of overlapping, especially in the curves. I'm just gonna do it a little bit smaller than I did before. Bring it back. And now we've got something that looks like little hair ribbons. We're gonna move to the next one and go back to our regular ribbons. And we're gonna do something similar with this. Especially when you're a new quilter and you're doing ribbons just like we did up here in this green space, where you're doing the back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. It's not gonna look very consistent at first, and that's okay. It just takes time and practice. And so this is one way to make it look like it's purposeful, okay? I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna do my ribbon like normal, and I'm kind of following the line of these pumpkins right now. And are you ready for the secret? We're gonna do the same thing that we just did right here, where I'm just gonna go back over. I'm just doing little smaller loops inside and crossing back over. And then it looks like it's on purpose. I'm gonna do that again. I'm gonna go ahead and finish up here, and I'm gonna rezone and quilt until I am finished, and let's see the final results. All right, I took this home and I bound it and I washed it, and I just love the way it turned out. So you can see we started on the first block with your basic meandering. We moved to ribbons and then to loops, and then I elevated each of these by doing wonky ribbons, and so I traced out kind of a pattern of how big and how weird I wanted like the shape of my ribbons to go, and I just followed that to go bigger and smaller and fill the space. Here I did some funky meandering by adding a little shape in the middle, and because this is a Halloween quilt, I decided to do boo! So I did some little meanderings and wrote boo, and then my way to elevate the little loops is I add little ghosties. That's what I love about loops and meandering, is you can just do whatever you feel like with them, and you can add stars and hearts, and depending on the holiday, you can add anything you want. And so these guys have little ghosties. Then another way to elevate the ribbons is I call it a bounce back. It's kind of like an echo where you go all the way down doing your ribbons and then you bounce back doing a smaller ribbon, and it kind of looks like candy. And these ones are perfect if you don't have a lot of confidence in your ribbons, because they look perfect every single time even though you secretly know they're not. Then a way to elevate meandering is this is the same thing with a bounce back, where I did a large all over meandering and then I bounced back to give it that ribbon look. And then the last way I elevated my loops is I did double loops. So I went around loop, around loop, around loop. And these are 9 different ways that you could elevate your quilting easily. And look, now we have a beautiful Halloween quilt to either give as a gift. You can do this easy for Christmas if you have a lot of grandchildren. I can probably make like 5 of these quilts in a day just because there's no cutting and it's all layer cakes. And I could probably do 3 or 4 of these quilting in a day. And that's easy gifts. Let's see what else is going on in Fall Festival.